The present cosmological model of physical reality is called the lambda cold dark matter Big Bang model of the universe. In a nutshell, the scenario of the universe according to this model is that at some point in the distant future, many trillions of years from now, at an event called the Big Rip, the physical observable universe as we know it will cease to exist. After the Big Rip, not only will the observable universe cease to exist, but any information or record that the universe and everything which ever once existed or occurred within it will also cease to exist. The dimensionless equilibrium state of the universe after the Big Rip represents the fundamental definition of a sterile vacuum of nothingness, the same nothingness from which it is predicted that the Big Bang itself emerged. Now, it is irrelevant that the lifetime of the universe is measured in many trillions of years. It has a beginning at the Big Bang and an end at the Big Rip, and is finite nonetheless. And it must be impossible to envisage a more barren and nihilistic fate. Now, forget Elon Musk colonising Mars, with the reason being that at some point in the distant future, that eventually the sun will expand and engulf the Earth. The end of the observable universe and of all life and consciousness within it represents the ultimate end of everything, restaurants included, I'm afraid. And the vacuum of nothingness trumps the end of planet Earth all day long. No matter how many planets humanity colonises in the future, it is our ultimate destiny and fate that eventually it would all be for nothing. Basically, all life in the universe is fucked, and nothing we can ever do can alter that fact. And although you may think this situation is depressing, it gets even worse, especially if you're relying on God to save you from oblivion. And here's why. A significant consequence of the fact that the physical observable universe is finite in time and space is that the finiteness of itself and the fact that all matter ceases to exist after the Big Rip necessarily precludes the existence of any physical God, an entity which by its very nature is defined as being eternal and infinite. It also precludes the physical existence of heaven and hell as being impossible to exist within a finite universe in which the existence of all atoms of matter also have a finite transient existence. We can agree that at very least God, if it exists at all, is capable of forming a linear connected flow of thoughts. It designed the universe, for fuck's sake. Basically, we can agree that it can think and is conscious of its own existence. However, in order to form a narrative flow of thoughts, it is a necessary prerequisite requirement that such a linear process can only occur in a universe where time flows consistently in one direction and where cause always precedes effect over time. So how would a disembodied consciousness be able to perform a linear process in the timeless, dimensionless vacuum state of the universe after the Big Rip? Regardless of whether God exists or not, the same profound question after the Big Rip event still remains relevant and valid nonetheless. If that's all there is, then what was the fucking point of all that? A universe which popped into existence from nothing, with no purpose or reason to exist. A universe which lacks any credible mechanism which can cause its existence, and after it exists, there is no record that it once did exist. All the achievements of humanity, and also every other intelligent species and civilizations which ever existed on the innumerable other habitable planets which exist in the universe, all those glorious achievements which have ever been made throughout the eons of time, all the thousands of years of suffering endured by all civilizations in the universe, every single new individual life, every idea, all those dreams, all the laughter and all the memories, ultimately all for nothing. As stated before, a more bleak, desolate scenario is hard to imagine. Now, I wouldn't blame you if your immediate response to this information is, what the fuck has it got to do with me? It's not going to happen for trillions and trillions of years, and I'm not going to be around when it happens. Well, here's what it's got to do with you personally. Right now, if the cold dark matter Big Bang model of the universe is correct, and by all accounts that seems to be the way things actually are, it means that it is an unavoidable fact that the existence of all life, and by implication the existence of consciousness as well, is ultimately a transient, unique, one-off occurrence which does not survive the end of the physical universe. If life and consciousness does not survive the death of the universe, it therefore also means that when you die, there will be no part of your existence which survives the death of your physical body. Now, after all that doom and gloom, here is the good news. There is a way which offers hope, and if ever humanity needed some good news, we've never needed it more than now. The only possible way that the existence of life and consciousness can be eternal, and for our own existence in this universe to have any possible meaning, is if the concept of the eternal reincarnation of the individual soul is a real process, and that the phenomena is a fundamental condition of every individual soul's physical existence in the universe. Only if the perpetual reincarnation of the individual soul is true can it ever be possible that an eternal domain can exist within the confines of the finite physical universe. And I have already described the fundamental laws which govern the process of reincarnation in previous videos. So a brief recap of those laws is that it is an intrinsic condition of the existence of any given individual soul is that it is subject to a perpetual chain of births and subsequent deaths and rebirths, with no opt-out clause to this condition. Unlike God, the process of perpetual reincarnation doesn't care whether you believe in it or not. Each separate physical existence experienced by an individual soul always represents the beginning, or the first link, if you like, of the eternal future chain of physical existences which that particular soul will experience after its present physical existence. The reincarnation model of physical reality postulates that the number of separate, unique, individual physical existences which it is possible for an individual soul to experience within the finite timeline of the observable universe is infinite. The fact that a soul experiences an infinity of separate physical existences defines an individual soul as being essentially immortal in nature. The process of the reincarnation of the one individual soul popping in and out of existence within the multiverse can be compared to John Wheeler's one electron universe hypothesis, where every electron in the universe is regarded as the one same electron zipping backwards and forwards in time within the four-dimensional space-time of the cosmos. The physical observable universe is finite, but from the perspective of the existence of an individual soul, the universe is infinite and eternal. Another fundamental law of the process of reincarnation is that the world and the kind of society into which a soul is reborn into on every occasion is wholly and entirely determined by the moral state of that soul at the moment of death in the previous existence. The mathematical infinity of permutations of possible conscious physical existences, and beginning with any individual first link in the eternal chain, also defines the reincarnation model of the universe as being a many worlds multiverse version of physical reality. The uniqueness of each individual physical reality is infinite in number, in the same way that no two snowflakes are identical. This principle of the process of perpetual reincarnation, analogous to Wheeler's electron, solves the enigma of how something which is essentially defined as being infinite in nature, and in this case we're talking about the immortal soul, can exist and be perpetually present within a physical universe which is essentially finite in time and space. Within the infinite many worlds multiverse, which represents the domain of the immortal soul, it is a statistical certainty that every possible form of society which it is possible for a soul to experience in a physical existence exists somewhere in the universe in actuality. Whatever the moral state of your soul is like at the moment of your death in this life, you can be sure that out there somewhere in the infinite many worlds multiverse, there exists a society on a planet with a collective global consciousness which resonates in perfect harmony with the moral musical note of your living soul. And that will be the planet on which your soul will be reborn and represents the society and the world that your soul can expect to experience in your next life. This being the case, in the infinity of separate physical existences, there exists an infinity of worlds in which the intelligent apex species of that planet have evolved into a more enlightened and spiritual species than that of Homo sapiens. The path of the evolution of the spiritual enlightenment of that species has progressed in such a way which eventually enabled that species to establish the creation of nothing less than a global technological paradise society on that planet. The only way that we can ever hope to experience an alternative physical existence on another planet in the universe and travel through time and space of the cosmos is if the reincarnation model of the universe is true. There is a profound fairness and rightness to the process of reincarnation and must represent the ultimate karma of existence of a soul. A paradise society can only possibly exist in a civilization in which every member of the intelligent apex species lives their life according to the principle of the golden rule. Treat every conscious living thing, and more particularly every human being you happen to meet in your day-to-day life, the way they deserve to be treated, and the way you would like to be treated yourself, namely with respect, empathy, compassion, with inclusion and without prejudice, which is the essence of the Golden Rule. Now, I have spoke elsewhere in other videos about my belief in the idea that the aspect of our existence, which we describe as experience being conscious, represents nothing less than the immortal soul of the individual. The ability to form a linear flow of thoughts, or in other words, that which we call consciousness, is a process which occurs at a shell which is located roughly 3,200 kilometres above the surface of the Earth. The geometry and the physics relating to this shell is already established and will be well known to the guys who put satellites up into orbit. All you have to know about this shell is that the lateral flow of time at this altitude is exactly equal to the speed of light in a vacuum. 3,200 kilometres represents the radius, where a clock which is in orbital free fall orbit around a planet at this specific altitude will neither gain nor lose time relative to the gravitational field of the planet. The conscious intentionality of every voluntary physical movement you make originates at this shell. Every thought you ever had and everything you can ever remember doing is stored in this shell. The access and retrieval of a specific memory is instantaneous and immediate, and in this respect the shell can be compared to a quantum hard drive, in that the access to a memory, or a single file if you like, is instantaneous. And this principle of intentionality of action originating at this shell applies to every conscious living thing on this planet. The following scenario helps to explain the relationship between the conscious intentionality to move, which originates at the shell at 3,200 kilometres, and the actual mechanical movement of the physical body as a response to that conscious intentionality, and which is situated on the surface of the planet. The intentionality for an aerial drone to move in any given direction in the air, for instance, originates at the transmitter held by the ground-based pilot. Now, the drone will do nothing and will just hover there and not move till the battery runs out, unless the buttons and the levers are pressed on the controller. Now, similarly, the fingers of the pilot will not move and will not press any buttons and controls without an already pre-existing intentionality for the fingers to move those buttons. In this setup, the source and transmitter of the conscious intentionality of the voluntary movement of all conscious living things originates at this Cartey shell. For any habitable planet which supports any form of life which is capable of moving independently of its own volition, the movements of that life form on the surface of the planet creates unique electromagnetic fields of radiation which would not have existed if the movement itself had not been made. Indeed, the organic matter which comprised the body of the first ever animal to make the first voluntary independent movement in the universe, say, represents the first time in the universe that the movement of an atom of matter violated both the natural laws of physics and the natural forces of gravity. When a soul is reincarnated in a paradise society, then for its entire existence that soul will know nothing other than living a life according to the golden rule. When that living soul dies in a paradise society, the moral vibrations of that soul will again determine that that soul will be reincarnated into an alternative paradise physical existence one more time. To all intents and purposes, an immortal soul which is perpetually reincarnated in an infinite succession of individual physical existences in paradise on every occasion can be regarded as existing in a domain of the soul which equates with an eternal personal reincarnation heaven which is unique to that individual soul. Reincarnation hell is not the fire and brimstone domain as depicted and portrayed by the religious churches. The true concept of hell is the eternal oblivion of a perpetual succession of individual shitey physical existences stretching out to eternity, with the conscious living soul in each experience in any given individual physical existence, not realising or knowing that its eternal immortal existence is actually in hell. Similar to the religious interpretation of hell though, reincarnation hell does equate with the eternal damnation of an individual soul. Now, it is patently obvious that the current global state of society on this planet can certainly not be described as a paradise. It does not represent an entirely hellish existence either, somewhere in between perhaps, like a 50-50 balance between good and evil. I believe there is a reason why souls are reincarnated at this moment in time in the history of the planet, and in particular at this particular moment in the evolutionary history of human spirituality. It is my contention that the circumstances of our existence in our previous life in some hellish, wretched alternative existence, that it transpired in such a way that whatever those circumstances were, it caused a change in the moral frequency of our soul from that of the global consciousness, collective global consciousness of the society and the world in which we existed at that time, to a different frequency which resonated in harmony with that of the present state of society on earth. Whatever the circumstances were, it is reasonable to assume that it involved some form of altruism, or perhaps in our previous life we even sacrificed ourselves by performing some form of selfless altruistic act. The reward for being a good guy in your previous existence in hell was that your soul was reborn here. This implies that if the common denominator which qualifies a soul to be reborn here is an altruistic act or altruism, that this condition must therefore also apply to all souls who are reborn here. In other words, if you were not the kind of person who would perform an altruistic act or show kindness to strangers when your conscious living soul existed in hell, you will never be able to pass by this neck of the woods. You wouldn't deserve it. In other words, as immortal souls, we thoroughly deserve and have earned the right to be here. To all intents and purposes, We can regard this existence as our reward for being a good guy in our last existence in hell. Now, although extremely reluctant to do so, it seems to me that the only way to describe this one-off event in our eternal existence as an immortal soul is to compare it to the equivalent of purgatory, neither heaven, neither hell. And if reincarnation is true, then what I'm going to say next is also true. And I really want you to think deeply about what I'm going to say next. Because by doing so, it is nothing less than your conscious, living, immortal soul which is doing the thinking. And it is that aspect of your existence I wish to appeal to. Think of it in terms of your conscious, immortal soul becoming awake for the first time and becoming aware for the first time of its own individual immortal existence. It is my contention that this physical conscious existence represents the one and only opportunity which a soul has to escape the eternal oblivion of perpetual reincarnation hell and have the chance to immediately ascend to reincarnation heaven. You have an important decision to make. You have a 50-50 choice. You can choose to do only one of two things. And with no exaggeration whatever, what you decide to do next represents nothing less than the most profound, important decision you will ever have to make in the whole eternity of your existence as an immortal soul. The choice you have to make is straightforward. The first option is, from this moment on, live your life according to the principle of the golden rule, and at the moment of your death in this life, your conscious mortal living soul will be reborn into a physical existence in a paradise world within the multiverse. And by implication, your immortal soul will also enter the eternal domain of reincarnation heaven. Option 2. Don't live your life according to the principle of the golden rule. And the consequence of that is that at the time of your death, your physical existence will not be reborn in paradise, and your immortal soul will not enter the eternal metaphysical realm of reincarnation heaven. In purgatory, your reward for being a good guy one more time is that when you die, your immortal soul will immediately be reborn in a paradise society, in an alternative existence within the multiverse. We can assume that any given individual soul can only pass this way once. And if that is true, this is your one time. And with regard to embracing the principle of the golden rule, only 100% compliance counts. It's an either or thing. It is a simple yes or no, in or out. A black or white situation with no shades of grey allowed. And in this, it's definitely a case of your actions speak louder than your words. If reincarnation is true, then the moment you make your decision represents nothing less than the beginning of the equivalent of the personal judgment day of your own immortal soul. And your own personal judgment day will end at the moment of your death. It's an ongoing process from this moment on. Now, whether you go to heaven or hell after you die will be determined by everything you will do between the beginning, as in now, and the end of your own judgment day. Any sins committed prior to the beginning of your judgment day will be irrelevant to the vibrations of your soul at the moment of your death. and the slate will be wiped clean, but only on condition that you embrace the principles of the golden rule, as in from this moment on. And with regard to when you start to do this, well, you could die tomorrow. The question you need to ask yourself is, would the vibrations of the moral note of your soul resonate with a paradise collective global consciousness? The vibrations of your soul is the smoking gun which betrays the private, true kind of person you really are in your heart, and you cannot hide from those vibrations. They are part of who you are. So how does a soul become fortunate enough to be reincarnated in paradise and so enter the domain of reincarnation heaven? Well, it's not through the luck of the draw. Any soul which exists in such a paradise world entirely deserves to be there. Every paradise world has a collective global consciousness which resonates at a frequency which reflects the fact that the social norm of that society is that they endorse the principle of living their lives according to the golden rule. The immediate, instantaneous destination of every soul who dies and leaves Reincarnation Purgatory is only ever one of two places. The choice is yours and yours alone. Heaven or hell. You're never going to have this. There'll never be another second chance. And because every living soul possesses its own conscious free will, only that soul itself can decide its own fate. You can immediately ascend to reincarnation heaven or immediately return back to reincarnation hell. And in this decision, you are entirely on your own, and this is the way it should be. It is my contention that this physical conscious existence represents the one and only opportunity which a soul has to escape the eternal oblivion of perpetual reincarnation hell and have the chance to immediately ascend to reincarnation heaven. This is the only time your immortal soul will pass this way. It is a never to be repeated, one time only offer. The original soul was first reincarnated on this planet 600 million years ago and is marked by the point in time when all multicellular organisms which populated the planet at that time acquired the ability to move independently within their immediate three-dimensional environment. Before that time, there was nothing on the planet which could move independently of its own volition within its immediate environment. The intentionality of movement exercised by an individual organism represents the embryonic beginning of that which we will later describe as consciousness. The reincarnation of the original soul, which enabled animals to move of their own volition, initiated the subsequent Cambrian explosion, which occurred some 60 million or so years later. Ever since that moment of the first reincarnation of the original immortal soul on this planet, every conscious living animal which has ever existed on this planet has been the original soul experiencing a separate, individual, alternative physical existence from the unique perspective of that particular animal. As an individual human being, we are all the one original soul experiencing a separate conscious physical existence from the unique perspective of our own unique experience of physical reality. For instance, if you abuse a homeless person on the street, you are abusing yourself experiencing an alternative physical existence down in your luck. And if you abuse anyone in this life, then you are the kind of person who will be reincarnated in a world in your next life. That it may be that you will be the one who is being abused. Me personally, and speaking as an already awakened, conscious, immortal soul, I am 100% certain that the reincarnation of the soul is a reality. I already know what I've decided to do. It's a no-brainer, literally. It's fucking easy. I'll treat everyone I meet and associate with in my every waking moment according to the principle of the golden rule. And as such, I am also therefore 100% certain that when I die, my conscious living soul will be reborn in a physical paradise, and by implication my immortal soul will enter the eternal metaphysical domain of reincarnation heaven. If I die right now, I know I'm going to reincarnation heaven, no doubt. Whether and if I die tomorrow, next week, next year, whenever, it doesn't matter. I know I'm going to reincarnation heaven. It occurred to me that since I am already 100% sure that my immortal soul will enter reincarnation heaven when I die, I therefore regard my immortal soul as already existing in the metaphysical domain of reincarnation heaven, regardless of the state of society and the solid physical world which my living conscious soul is experiencing in this existence. The big thing I need to sort in my life has already been sorted. I am the happiest I have ever been in my life. Living your life according to the golden rule is the secret to attaining an eternal existence. And I now experience a profound contentment in my life, which I've never experienced before. It's a level of profound contentment which you won't be able to comprehend until you experience it yourself. And the good thing about it is it's free. This feeling I have is free. The only thing I can compare it to is this. It doesn't matter how many times and how many people tell you the level of love you have for your grandchildren. You can't really truly comprehend what they're talking about till you experience it for yourself. And there are some people out there who know exactly what I'm talking about. John Lennon was right in so many things, but he hit the nail right on the head when he declared all you need is love. Unlike entry to heaven being decided by the dude guarding the pearly gates, entry to reincarnation heaven does not require you to placate an intermediate middleman to gain entry. There is no religious organisation or person you need to give money to in order to get to reincarnation heaven. Think about this. At every moment in your conscious living existence, you exist at the exact centre of the observable universe. Check it out. At the most fundamental level, you are immortal, and only you can decide whether your own immortal soul will go to heaven or hell. If you wish to believe in a God, it seems you yourself meets all the criteria for such an entity. There is no other existence in the universe which qualifies more for that title. In the eternity of your immortal existence, there is no God in the universe other than yourself. Now, if you are looking for an endorsement from your faith leaders that you should live your life according to the golden rule, then all you need to know is that in 1993, all 143 leaders of all the world's major religions proclaimed the golden rule, as in, we must treat others as we wish to treat us. as the common principle for all religions. Now listen, why don't you hedge your bets? Live your life according to the tenets of your faith and your religion, but also live your life according to the principle of the golden rule. Either way, you can therefore be assured that when you die, your immortal soul is guaranteed that it is definitely going to heaven, either the religious eternal heaven or the reincarnation heaven. If you choose not to live your life according to the golden rule, you are of course banking on the chance that reincarnation is not true. But considering that there is a 50-50 chance that the decision you make may determine the eternal fate of your own individual immortal soul, if reincarnation heaven is true, is that a chance you are willing to take? There is no other model of the universe, none other, which accommodates the possibility that heaven, as being an actual eternal metaphysical domain of the immortal soul, can exist within a universe which is finite in time and space. It's the application of the Sherlock Holmes theory of deduction. If you rule out every other possibility as being impossible, and as such therefore cannot be true, then whatever the one thing you are left with must be true, regardless of how improbable or impossible it seems. And even if reincarnation is not true, what's the harm in living your life according to the golden rule anyway? This is the only time your immortal soul will pass this way. It is a never to be repeated, one time only offer, the only consolation for your conscious living soul if you choose option 2, and your immortal soul immediately returns to reincarnation hell when you die, is that you will never know that you once passed this way and had the opportunity for your immortal soul to go to reincarnation heaven. As a conscious living soul, you will never know that you knocked it back.